Hi there, this is Tom Savansary from Premier Trust Advisors. Thanks for joining me on this quick video. So if you're watching this video, the hope is that you have some interest to learn about new ways to improve your financial life. And a lot of it starts with pretty basic things. Like everyone, or at least most people, have similar desires with their financial life. One, long-term wealth, right? Why wouldn't you want to accumulate as much of wealth that you can, given your circumstances? There's still the thought of retirement, right? Everyone wants to retire and live a comfortable life. That's the epitome of the American dream. Let's maximize our retirement income. While on the other side, minimizing the taxes, because that can be a substantial wealth eroder for your wealth. And for some people, they are looking to try to figure out how to preserve their wealth, use it while they're alive, but also preserve it for their families or charities, anything that's important to them. And then obviously one of the big things is to reduce costs, and that goes along with minimizing taxes. And let's reduce risk too, because we don't want to speculate and potentially lose big portions of our money. So that's what most people desire. But the problem is that the way we've been taught around how to manage our money is putting us into a bind. And the way most people are doing it today is that they're doing it sort of independent, a lot of different advisors. Maybe you're making decisions one at a time in isolation and with different people at different times and under unique circumstances that are going to drive it. So in a lot of cases, there's a lot of decisions being made, but it's often not looked at holistically across all the different aspects of your financial life. And because of that, you end up with this thing we call a junk drawer sometimes, right? I have in my kitchen, and sometimes creeps up on us very quickly. But when you have this junk drawer sort of phenomenon happening with your finances, it can lead to disorganization. I'm not sure where all the policies are or accounts and what's really happening into them. They're not coordinated. So because they're being done in isolation, you're not thinking about other aspects of your financial life sometimes to make sure you're making the right choice. And because they're not integrated, it becomes an inefficient model. And in some cases, there's a significant amount of wealth being eroded and being lost that people are not even really aware of. And then simply it just gets hard to manage. And in this day and age, we want things to be simpler. We don't want to make them harder. So as it relates to the financial world, personal finances, it's imperative to understand the rules of the game. And oftentimes, if you don't know the rules of the game, they're going to tell you. Financial institutions, individuals, they're going to tell you what the rules are. And in general, the way we've been taught is that, these institutions or individuals, they want our money. They want it, and they want it systematically through payroll or constant periodic deposits, which is not a bad thing in itself. But the problem is they want to hold on to the money as long as possible, and they want to return it to us in as little amount as possible so they can continue to maintain and manage those accounts and those assets and continue to earn fees and all that stuff while we take all the risk. So another big factor we have to think about as we try to build our wealth, there's a lot of things that are eroding our wealth building. And we call these eroding factors. And something as basic as inflation, which is the self-tax, that could be hugely impactful to what we're able to spend and use our money for. Inflation's eating away at it. Taxes is just a loss. And so minimizing taxes is huge. Market fluctuations, as you have losses. Losses actually have a much bigger impact than increases in asset appreciation and value. Law changes, things that change laws that will impact us and maybe erode our wealth. Lawsuits definitely could happen, right? It's one of those things. We're in a very litigious society. Lawsuits can happen at any moment if a decision is made that's not optimal. And then on this other side, you have things that are just happening in this world. Technology is moving at light speeds. Now everyone has to have the latest iPhone, so you have to pay that $800 or $1,000 to buy it. You have unexpected life events that are going to happen that require maybe additional money, taking care of your home or things of that nature. Fees and consumer financing, that's people are taking on significant amounts of debt. increased standard of living, and then planned obsolescence. Things are just going to wear and tear and you have to replace them. So these are all things that really erode our wealth. So what do you do about this to deal with this problem? And it's basically a process, right? This view of it is simplistic, but there's a lot of complexity in it. But at its essence, there's three main things. There's a game board, which we'll go into, and rules. You want to understand what the rules of the game are so that you can create a much more efficient model. And then the macro manager is where I can come into play and work with you to kind of look at your holistic financial life and figure out how to make sure that we're efficient and we're coordinating across. So the game board. Now this is when you think of chess, you got to understand there's a game board here in your financial life, and it helps us to look at it holistically, because then we can coordinate what's happening and we can measure performance, and we can make sure that you understand how the products actually function and work. And it allows us to think through strategies on how to improve it so you get more benefits across the board, not just dollars in an account. And there's rules that we'll use as guideposts. They don't have to be followed 100% to a T, but it allows us to say, what is a way to design a model so that you have the most effective strategies in place to protect your wealth, to build it, to create income, and then pass it to your future legacy. It isn't just about accumulation. That's a lot of the attention for personal finance. How can I build the biggest net worth? Well, if you can't create income from it efficiently, it's not really all worth as much. Creating income and passing on all those things are factored into what we discuss and help you sort of game plan and create better strategies. And then the macro manager. This is thought of an orchestra where you have all the moving parts. If they're not coordinated, you're going to likely not hear some great music. And that goes along with our finances as well. They have to be coordinated so you know why you're doing certain things and how it helps other assets. And especially as you're thinking about the future and creating income from your assets, how are you going to do that with the least amount of tax, less risk? So when we think about the LEAP model itself, LEAP model is straightforward. There's 5 areas that we focus on and help clients look at and examine and better understand. Is one area is protection. That's first and foremost. We got to protect our wealth in a lot of different ways. And one of the areas is our assets, right? This is typical. We protect our vehicles, our property, but it's also protecting our income, which is our biggest producer. We as our individual minds and our abilities is the biggest asset we own. And we got to protect that, because if something were to happen, it's may be difficult to create income. And then you have your life as well, right? And this goes into wills and trusts and life insurance. Because again, you're the biggest and best asset you own. So we got to protect that for the security of your family and your future. And the second big area is savings, right? You can save in areas that are safe, like your bank accounts that don't earn that much, but very liquid, all the way down to the bottom row where you have potential for higher yield and potential tax benefits depending on what the situation is. And we'll go more into those. And then growth, right? This is where most of the attention goes to. How do we grow wealth in 3 different buckets? One, through income and acting like a banker, you can make loans. And then growth-wise, income and growth, whether it's in the stock market, if that's your preference, to other areas that maybe have more tax advantages like real estate or even owning a business. And then 2 other areas that overlay some of these the big protection, savings, and growth areas is cash flow. Cash flow is huge because that's how you're going to eat. Right? Cash flow is what is the lifeblood of our financial lives, and making sure that's optimal. It's not just putting money into account and hoping to use it someday. How do we create cash flow now and make sure we maximize it so you get the most benefit with your money? And then obviously debt window. Some people have different opinions around debt, and using it. We take the approach of taking bad debt and make it good debt or no debt. And so strategically, there are very profitable ways to leverage debt that more than you can do with just your money yourself, that can really increase your wealth exponentially. And then lastly, it's the macro manager. And this is where we help you think through, us in the center, looking at all the different other advisors that you may touch and how do we coordinate across them to make sure that they're at least talking to each other, or we're connecting with them and getting their input into a broader strategy for you and what matters to you and your priorities. And the LEAP strategic model and process is fairly straightforward. It's discovering what is it that you have a big issue with, and what are those priorities you have within your financial world and your life, and identifying what information we're going to need to review so we can get to the truth of the matter and try to find out new strategies. And this is where we visualize your data on a model to see what strategic alternatives would be potentially better and more beneficial for what you're trying to do. And then we implement it. And this is, information is great, but we got to take some action. And so this is the part where we put in place strategies and that will improve your financial position and bring you benefits well above than what you're currently doing. And then achieve is where we take we continue to look at your model and see how to improve it year after year, increase the efficiency and effectiveness, and use it so that you can benefit and basically reach your maximum financial potential. So that's really it. That's a quick snapshot of the LEAP model. And when we get into it, you'll see the power of really looking at these things and better understanding how they are affecting each other, and how can we position your assets and your income in a way that you get the most out of it. So I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to talking to you about this and moving forward to look at how we solve problems for you, for what matters for you financially.